Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, From Global to Local, Key Findings Shaping British Columbia's International Education. My name is Kate. I'm the Manager of Market Support and Partnership Development here at the BC Council for International Education. Thank you so much for joining us today on what I hope will be an informative session on IDP's Emerging Futures 8, Voice of the International Student Research. Before we get started, it is important that I acknowledge that at BCCIE, we live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Now, on to a few housekeeping items. Just a quick reminder that please use the Q&A function to send your questions if you have any, or if you have any comments. If you need any technical assistance during the webinar, please feel free to put that in the chat box and we'll be happy to answer your inquiry. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you our speakers today from IDP. Livia Castellanos, Vice President of External Affairs, Robin Garcha, Partnerships Director and Solutions Lead, and Jigisha Mehta, Senior Marketing Manager. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we look forward to learning the insights that you're going to share with us. Now over to you, Livia.
Thank you very much, Kate, and thank you everyone for being here. We are absolutely delighted to be with BCCIE and all our colleagues from across British Columbia. Today, my name is Livia Castellanos. I work with IDP. I am responsible for external affairs, and with me, my colleagues, Robin Garcha, you all know very well. She's very well known across British Columbia and other places in Canada since she was before at BCCIE, and my colleague Jikisha Mehta, the Senior Marketing Manager. Today, we are going to very quickly speak to you about some of the great findings of our Emerging Futures 8, but more specifically, we're going to be addressing British Columbia. And we think it's very important for you to know what is the demand for British Columbia, as well as the programs that you might be wanting to promote abroad. So our agenda, I'm going to go through it. We're going to have a quick overview of IDP, a global policy overview. As we know, policy impacts a lot of the decisions of students, so I think it's important to do a comparison. Then we're going to go from a national to provincial demand trends, and then Robin will take us to Emerging Futures 8 and also some key takeaways and recommendations. So moving on into our presentation, you know, most of you are partners of IDP. We thank you so much for working with us. Just a quick snapshot about IDP. We have around more than 200 offices, more than 30 source countries, 6 destination countries, Canada one of them. And this year we have placed over 700,000 students. I also want to say, well, over 100,000 students in FY25. And also we have our websites, and on our websites, we have lots of clicks from students being interested not only to come into Canada for other destinations. When we move forward, then I would like to talk to you about IDP's commitment to quality. And I wanted to make a point of this slide because I was an associate vice president of the University of Regina in Saskatchewan for many years, and IDP and the university were partners. And then after I moved to Navitas, and probably you are familiar with FIC at SFU, and I also worked there, and I was a partner of IDP. What I did not know are these things that I consider to be very important. Number one is, you know, the ethical student first advice that IDP provides to students. And I think it's very important. If you don't know, it was a surprise to me when I joined IDP 7 months ago. Counselors of IDP do not earn a commission from institutions. They are really focused on student first advice. And also the counselors are not only commission blind, but they don't know what is the relationship between IDP and the institution, which I think is really important because it creates an unbiased situation between the counselor and the student. Also, I think it's very important for you to know that we have a very rigorous verification. The applications are pre-screened for academic history, financial capability, and just the genuine intent of the student. Of course, we also provide ongoing support to students in pre-departure briefings and onshore offices in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand continue the student support. That's, I think, a very important piece for me. The training, I think, also is very important. We have a student placement ways of working, and we have, 98% of our compliance requirement for other destinations like in the UK, and we have a structured learning for all our counselors. We also do a lot of survey to our students, so we're listening, responding, and actually acting on feedback so that we can accommodate and we can pivot according to the student feedback and the family feedback. I think it's really important that if we are a student first, that we listen to the students and we also accommodate our practices to them. And lastly, it is sharing transparent data. And you all know, if you are partners of IDP, you can view application data and you can have access to all of that. Today is a clear example of our data transparency. We like to share with all of you the findings of IDP, the data that we have gathered from prospective students from around the world, hoping that that allows you and serves you well and serves your institutions well. Moving on to the next slide. I am going to be talking about very quickly about global policies. As you know, IDP is a global organization with over 55 years of experience monitoring a lot of the international student journey, but most importantly, because of its reach across several destinations, we gather and monitor the policy sentiment and the policy changes that happen across all countries that are destinations for students. I am not going to focus on Canada. I wanted to show you this slide as a comparative analysis between Australia, UK, and US versus Canada. I know that we have gone through tremendous changes in this country. I have been 25 years working in international education, and I can tell you that we went back probably 15 to 16 years in the past 2 years. And I know that this has caused a lot of issues to a lot of people and a lot of our colleagues and a lot of institutions. But I mean, in the positive note, I wanted to show you this because you can see that in spite of all of those changes, Canada continues to remain a more friendly country in terms of policy. I just wanted to give you a snapshot, for example, of what's happening in Australia. Right now, you can see that some of the Australia not only put the caps, but also we have $2,000 is the most expensive student visa application, and it is from Australia. So you can see that not only they have that, but they have a very pricey visa. Also, to extend your study permit within Australia is around $3,000 to $7,000. I think is something really important. In Canada, the application is $250. So we continue to be very, very, competitive in that way. For the UK, I just wanted to make a point to say that permanent residency now is increased to 10 years. So for most migrants, and that is something very, very important to mention. As you know, our students can become permanent residents through the provincial nominee program. And I think also it gives a competitive advantage to Canada. And what can I say about the US? You all know all the things that are happening there. There is a very volatile situation. The policies are not very, very clear at this point, and also students are being very scrutinized before they come to the US. Everything to say that even though we have gone through very turbulent times in Canada in terms of policy and policy uncertainty, is really important to remain positive because our policies continue to be friendlier than the other destinations that we continue to compete with. When we move to the next slide, and this is going to close the slide of global policy. I wanted to tell you that what IDP has been globally seeing over and over is that when government policies are positive, they encourage international student flow, which means we have high volumes of students moving to destinations. Then we see the growth, and that's the growth that we saw in previous years here in Canada. And you can see then that we start having issues of capacity, issues of diversity, issues of quality. And all of these, they are either issues or there is perceptions, but all of that arises because of the volume of the students that the nation is attractive. Then we start seeing negative press, negative sentiment. The public is not necessarily very happy with all of these. And then how does government respond? They respond with less welcoming rhetoric. They do adjustments and adaptations to policies. They change policies to stop a little bit of the flow. And then after, when the waters come and things settle again, the government, start adjusting policies and reverting some of the policies that they implemented just to start opening the flow back into the country. I think that we have gone through the whole cycle somehow, and we are now in the way up. That doesn't mean that we're going to be recuperating right away, but I think that we are now in the way of recovering through policy adaptation and adjustment. We all can see it with the 155,000 new study permits that the government is going to be issuing or is going to be reviewing. But not only that, we can see it as well with the policies that are going to benefit master and doctoral students. And I mean, this is a step forward, and we are hoping that with these policies, Canada can be seen a bit of a more welcoming country and destination. It is really the end of my part here. I am going to now pass it to my colleague Jigisha, who's going to be speaking about the student demand trends for British Columbia and beyond. Take it away, Jigi.
Yeah, thanks so much, Livia. And hi, everyone. I'll be taking you all through student demand trends in British Columbia and beyond. We'll start by looking at the national picture, then zoom into the provincial level to uncover the localized insights. As we go through the data, I encourage you to think about these trends and inform your strategy, whether it's identifying your messaging or staying ahead of the curve. We'll dive into the insights from our IQ demand tool, and this tool captures real-time student insights from search behavior across 40 plus connected websites of IDP. Together, these sites attract millions of visits each year, giving us a strong perspective view of how prospective students around the world are actively looking for. First, I would like to show our international student demand data for the four study destination from November 2024 to 2025. It's a busy chart indeed, but it shows the dynamic and volatile nature of student demand. The destination countries are represented in four colors. The yellow at the top is the UK, red is Australia, the USA is orange, and Canada is teal. If we step back and look at the big picture over the past 12 months, student demand has shifted, especially for the US. We can map out a lot of policy shifts that have happened alongside the demand tracker. Right now, we see UK is leading at 30%, driving by strong perceptions of good quality education and fast visa processing from 2 weeks to 24 hours with expedited services. Australia holds second place and has shown some volatility due to the political and regulatory changes. The US, which was once dominant, has declined following the introduction of student caps and stricter policies. And at the fourth position, we see Canada, despite its welcoming reputation, is currently at fourth position. Recent changes to intake caps and study permit rules is pushing students to look elsewhere. In fact, we are seeing rising interest in emerging destinations like New Zealand and Ireland, both English speaking and increasingly competitive. So this decline we feel, represents an opportunity for British Columbia where it can position itself as a solution to the challenges students face today, especially in bigger cities like Ontario. And some of the things that it can offer is affordable living solutions that BC has, a strong community support, scholarship and student success stories, a welcoming and safe environment. It's also famous for its mountain and sea lifestyle and can also highlight key industries which are unique to BC, which is mining and natural resources, film and digital media, technology, innovation, agriculture, to name a few. Let's think about how we can amplify these strengths that BC has uniquely to itself and turn momentum towards your province. And then if we move on to our next chart here, what we are looking here is a snapshot of international student demand for Canada for top five source countries, and that's US, India, Nigeria, China, and Pakistan. Starting with the US, you'll notice a sharp spike in interest beginning in Jan 2025. This aligns with the US election results. It's currently at number two position. Historically, also, we've seen US interest in Canadian education tends to rise during times of political uncertainty or transition, reinforcing Canada's position as a stable and attractive alternative. At number one position is China at almost 17%, and it grew momentum very recently from October 2025. India started the period at the top as a top study country with 14%. After some minor fluctuations, its share declined a bit by 5 percentage point, ending the period at roughly 9%. So that's number three. And we are seeing Nigeria and Pakistan, which are number fourth and fifth position, which has shown demand constant, slightly lower throughout the year. So this steady interest highlights the importance of maintaining strong engagement and support in these emerging markets as well, especially through targeted awareness outreach initiatives. So what does this really mean to us? It's a reminder that while global events shape demand, we have the opportunity to respond strategically to it by understanding where the interest is growing and tailor our efforts to meet students where they are and position Canada and its regions within it as a destination of choice. So that's the summary. We move on to the next slide. Here we are seeing a comparison between Canada's and British Columbia's top source countries for international students, and we see some very interesting patterns. US and India are Canada's and BC's top two source markets. Countries such as Nigeria, China, Pakistan, Hong Kong, Brazil, Bangladesh, they appear in both the list. So that shows consistency nationally and provincially. So there's global trade trends which are influencing these patterns. China ranks third in British Columbia and fourth nationally. The stronger presence in BC can be due to the geographic proximity and cultural connection to Asia. We noted a few opportunities here. Your province can leverage strong Asia Pacific connections in China and Hong Kong by targeted campaigns, for example. Diversify beyond US and India by exploring outreach and growth opportunities in emerging destinations like Brazil and Turkey, which shows stronger performance in BC than nationally. Can also monitor Nigeria's rising influence, as Nigeria is also strong nationally but slightly lower in BC, and thus growth potential also exists there. And lastly, can position British Columbia as a premium destination with natural resources, landscape, and adventure lifestyle. That was pretty much the summary for this slide. And if we move on here, this section highlights some British Columbia's top subject areas in the last 1 year and how they compare to national trends. You will see your top three subject areas are consistent for Canada and your province, and that is health and medicine, business and administrative studies, applied and pure science. They remain core drivers for both national and provincial demand. BC shows higher interest in social sciences, possibly linked to cultural diversity and media sector, which BC has. We also see education and training is significantly stronger in BC, indicating demand for teaching and training programs. And lastly, BC's tourism economy drives higher interest in hospitality-related studies. So the data is actually revealing some important things here, highlighting success stories and offering clear employment pathways in these areas will attract ambitious students. It's also aligned to labor market and industry trends. Hospitality programs can be tied to provinces' tourism sector through partnerships with resorts and travel companies for internship and co-op placements. And lastly, expanding scholarship in health and STEM and promoting BC's biotech and healthcare innovation ecosystem will attract global top talent. And that's really the takeaway from this slide. And moving on to the next chart we have here. Yeah. So here's a quick look at program level trends and how your province compares to the national picture. We see here British Columbia has higher concentration in MBA and nursing compared to Canada. Programs like certificate in healthcare assistant, master of public health, post-degree certificate in nursing practice are unique to your province. Your province can emphasize pathways for healthcare upskilling and certification as these are trending locally. We also see BC includes Master of Engineering in Civil, Master of Data Science, which is completely absent from the Canada top 10 list. There's a regional push towards infrastructure tech data roles, suggesting opportunities for partnerships and growth in these sectors. So overall, the program mix here leans on healthcare, public health, and technical specializations, which is actually a great news because these are all high demand skills for the province. And if we move on to our next chart, this is a very interesting data point where we are comparing the study level demand for BC to national picture. Post-graduation studies dominate in both Canada and your province, making up the largest share of demand overall. But the Canada stands out even higher with 56% as compared to BC, which is at 48%. This reinforces Canada and British Columbia's strong appeal for advanced academic studies and specialized program. On other hand of the spectrum, we have vocational study demand, which remains low in both the regions, sitting at 10%, below 10%, sorry. So what's the opportunity here? BC can continue to lead in post-graduation education while exploring ways to elevate vocational pathway, particularly in sectors aligned to local workforce needs. And we have the next chart, which shows provincial demand over the last 1 year. This is also a very interesting data point we found provincially. As we see, Ontario clearly leads here, accounting to over 54% of the total demand. This highlights Ontario's strong pull. It also signals a need for diversification to reduce pressure on one province and create more balanced growth across the country. BC and Alberta show significant, but they are much lower in demand as compared to Ontario. We see there is a huge gap there, and interestingly, the data suggest your province is competing with Alberta for student interest. The remaining provinces, which include Saskatchewan, Quebec, Manitoba, Nova Scotia, they show slightly below low on demand, which is below 10%. This points to a potential need for tailored regional strategies to stimulate the interest and attract more students. You may want to zero down on British Columbia, which is boxed in green below at 19.4%, although modest ranking, but also has a stable showing through the year. This contrast of demand presents a real opportunity. Provincial governments can play a key role in supporting the education sector by investing in demand stimulation, whether through destination campaigns, infrastructure, or student-focused initiatives. So let's think of how we can work together to unlock that potential and ensure every region has a chance to thrive. Moving on to the next one. This chart builds on the previous slide, but instead of looking at how demand has changed over time, we are now looking at the overall volume of international students demand by province. It gives a snapshot of where interest is currently concentrated and where there's room to grow. Again, we are seeing BC, which is boxed in green here, is second position at 18%, shows potential to grow. And I would like to conclude my section with some of the key takeaways and challenges for the province of British Columbia. Over here, BC. So just to summarize the whole section, we saw in the previous chart, BC ranks number 2 position after Ontario in student demand, but the gap was significant. Ontario was at 54% versus BC was at 19%, and this presents strong potential to close the gap. Another key takeaway is many students move to Ontario due to jobs and family ties, while others head to prairies because the cost of living is lesser and housing is much lower. Heavy reliance on US and India increases exposure to volatility, and that's why we are recommending diversification is needed there. National changes reduce student caps, SDS removal, tighter work policies, and higher financial requirements are raising barriers for international students. So that's another challenge for the provinces today. Another key takeaway from my section is we observed that only 8% in vocational pathway, there's demand in 8% vocational pathway, and that may hinder entry into skilled trades. It lacks standout initiatives and USPs, and that limits British Columbia's ability to diversify and differentiate itself from key competition such as Ontario and Alberta. And from our emerging futures research, we found out that student prioritizes education quality, institutional availability, employment outcomes, affordability, and safety. We truly believe your province must visibly demonstrate strength in these areas to attract and retain top talent. So while there are many challenges which were called out, there are a number of opportunities and recommendations which we have to take you all through, and Livia will cover that in the end. Thanks for your patience so far. I think that was a lot of information on this section, and moving on to our next section. So I would like to invite Robin from my colleague from my IDP to take us through the next chapter for this presentation. Over to you, Robin.
Thanks, Jagisha. Next slide, please. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So this next section, I'll be covering insights from the Emerging Futures 8 survey, which was released globally on October 15th. To provide you with a bit of background, Emerging Futures is IDP's flagship biannual survey that captures the evolving voice of international students globally. Now, since 2020, it's tracked key drivers. Oh, sorry, just backtrack a couple points to note here. Since 2020, it's tracked key drivers of destination choice, perception, and policy impacts, offering governments, associations, and our institutional partners actionable insights to shape student-first strategies. And so today we're sharing provincial insights from the research, which we hope will be valuable to your practice. Now, this is the first time these questions have been included in our survey, and so we really wanted to understand how students decide which province to choose and why. And so let's dive in. Next slide, please. So in this first section of the survey, we asked respondents, did you consider multiple provinces before making your decision? For all Canada concentrated students, only 27% focused on a single province in their decision making. Among students who considered multiple destinations, 46% have strongly considered multiple provinces before making their decision. What does this imply? It implies that students' preferences are not fixed early on and that there's opportunity for competition, or at least be put in the students' consideration set. So early on, students are considering multiple destinations, let alone provinces. A key takeaway from this slide is the importance of Canadian provinces to actively differentiate themselves, to highlight their unique selling points and advantages to build stronger student appeal and sway those undecided students. Next slide, please. So next, we asked students, in which Canadian province are you studying in? Did you apply to and previously study in? From the results, Ontario ranked first, followed by BC, but note that the significant gap between the two. It's similar to what Jiggy presented in our student demand. Interestingly, 8% of students indicated not sure or open to any location. In this case, provinces have a strong opportunity to promote their appeal to capture this undecided segment. As I mentioned, Ontario dominates IDP student engagement, capturing 40% of those who applied are currently studying or intend to study there. BC is at 13% and Alberta 12% in third place. Manitoba holds a 6% share, followed by Nova Scotia at 5%, New Brunswick at 4%, and Saskatchewan with a modest 3%. These figures highlight that once again, the real competition for BC is Ontario, but to keep an eye out on Alberta. Next slide, please. Now, in this next section, we showcase the top 6 factors that influence international students when choosing a province in Canada. The number 1 factor is family and friends and the location. The second factor is high quality of education. Here in BC, we need to make sure that we're highlighting the quality of institution choice available to prospective students. Availability of preferred universities or colleges is the number 3 factor. And again, BC has some of the most prestigious research and comprehensive institutions. And so we need to make sure that we're highlighting all of the options available to students. Good employment opportunities is the 4th important factor, and this is where, as a province, and perhaps through BCCIE and Study in BC, we can highlight the in-demand and growing sectors like agriculture, tech, healthcare, as well as success stories of students who've secured jobs in the field after graduation. Affordable cost of living is the 5th most important factor. And so, Vancouver does get a rep of being one of the most expensive cities, but, as a whole, BC, there's various options. And so we do need to make sure that we're highlighting all of the housing available to students, whether that's through the college, university, or again, through Study in BC and BCCIE. And lastly, safety for international students is the 6th most important factor when choosing a province in Canada. So again, how are we showcasing that BC is a safe and welcoming environment for prospects? Next slide, please. Also new to the survey this year is a qualitative component of the survey. And so, traditionally, while the quantitative survey portion provides a global snapshot of the destination perceptions, the visa, impacts and policy changes, post-study work expectations, safety, and so forth, this qualitative phase looks deeper into the people behind those numbers. And so this new component of our survey explores the motivations and concerns of students, the influence of families, especially parents, and the broader market perspective of IDP counselors, capturing both personal decision dynamics and wider patterns shaped by policy, risk, and institutional actions. So again, taken together, the perspective of students, parents, and counselors provide a clear view of what drives confidence, what raises doubts, and how policies, peer experiences, and family considerations influence whether study plans progress or get reconsidered. So what did we learn when interviewing these 3 separate bodies? For students, we learned that students prioritize affordability, but they also value global exposure and long-term outcomes. So they are looking for a return on investment of their study abroad experience. So again, as a province and an institution, how are you connecting the program and the future opportunities available to these students post-study? In our last survey, students were looking for immigration and pathways of permanent residency. In this latest iteration, students are seeking clarity of information and transparency. Visa clarity is also a tipping point. So sudden changes to rules, again, changes of work rights or dependence really triggers hesitation. Peer voices through alumni digital communities outweigh institutional or government assurances. So students are really listening to their peers. From the parents, we learned that safety concerns, and this is often informed by news, community stories, and peer experiences, are often the first filter, but reassurance from counselors and the network can restore confidence when choosing a study destination. Once safety feels managed, then affordability is weighed, but only if long-term career and migration value is clear. So again, like students, parents are also looking at that whole outcome of a student journey. Parents may accept lower cost T&E as an entry point. I know that's been a popular component this year, but that's for parents. They'll consider a T&E only if it guarantees some sort of progression abroad. And again, similar to students, if there's uncertainty that stacks up, again, visa changes, economic instability, parents may withdraw support. So let's hope there's no more policy changes coming our way. From a counselor's counselor's perspective, counselors are the first interpreters of visa and policy changes, and they shape whether families feel calm or anxious. When rules, costs, and negative news converge, counselors see the sharpest rise in withdrawal. So there's that clear correlation. Transparent, proactive updates from institutions strengthen counselors' ability to reassure families, but it also restores faith in our counselors about what's happening overseas. So please continue to connect with your agent partners and keep them updated on programs and policy updates within your respective province. Strong counseling support can keep students committed even through shocks and uncertainty. So what's the main takeaway here? While students seek reassurance through transparency and clear communication, parents will assess the risk and the value, and it's the counselors that bridge the uncertainty. So all three stakeholders are important in the recruitment strategy and all require regular communication and touch points. Next slide. So to conclude my section, let's summarize some of the main themes from Emerging Futures survey. The first one here is Ontario is the top choice of province for students, with British Columbia and Alberta in second and third place, while other provinces attract minimal interest. So there is opportunity for BC here to really show its strength and its unique value proposition. Second point here is that nearly half of students, 46%, consider multiple provinces. Again, there's an opportunity to really sway those undecided students that aren't sure or haven't thought about which province to go to. Key drivers or key factors driving these decisions include family and friends in the location, but quality of education and availability of preferred institutions. So when it comes to BC, we've got an amazing, amazing group of institutions in this province. And so let's make sure that we are shining light on all of you. Students do value clarity and transparency, and peer influence often outweighs official assurances. We are seeing peer-to-peer become an effective medium when engaging with prospective students. We acquired the Ambassador platform in 2023, and so we do have a wealth of data of how peer-to-peer is really moving the conversion. So if you are interested, please email me after this webinar, and I can let you know or showcase some examples. And lastly, building trust requires aligned peer stories, counselor support, student services, and credible news across the sector. So thank you. I will now pass it over to Livia for some final remarks.
Thank you very much, Robin and Jiggy. Just, some key takeaways and recommendations for all of you. Number one, the student-driven market. Canada is fourth now as top destination of emerging futures. We just moved from 13% of demand globally to 14%. So we continue to be not in an ideal spot globally. We have now another destinations coming and rising like Germany and France. And I think it's very important for all of us as the Canada team and BC team to be focused on really speaking the story of Canada innovation and the alignment between our programs and the labor market. We have growth potential in the US and we should diversify. I know that we have been focusing a lot on India. We have been focusing a lot of Asia, but I think we should be diversifying through other markets. You all know this. This is nothing new, but I think that we have to make an effort and a conscious strategy and tactic to support that. I think it's really important to highlight the British Columbia strengths, highlight, your tech innovation, your startup ecosystem, the service industries that you have. But also one of the things that I have been conversing with some of the colleagues at BCCIE is I am very impressed with the transfer credit system that British Columbia has. I have to tell you that I have worked in different provinces. I have worked in Saskatchewan, Ontario, Alberta, and I have also worked in British Columbia through different roles that I have had in my professional career. And I can tell you that BC has one of the best systems that it is for transfer credit. I know a lot of students, whether they are domestic or international, that begin their studies in British Columbia, perhaps at a college that is in interior BC, and then they move to a bigger university or a bigger school in Vancouver. So I think that is one of the most important important features. I don't know if people actually know or understand the amazing system that BC has. So I think, in my own opinion and my own experience, probably something that you might want to consider. Education leadership, BC continues to lead in postgraduate programs, and it would be great if you could expand the promotion of your vocational program. There is a demand gap there. I think that everybody has been focusing on Ontario, and you can see not only the demand that we're having in the past year, but you can also see on our survey how students gravitate more to Ontario. And I think there is a story there in which BC can take some of those numbers back into BC. Now, Alberta is something that really surprises me, because years ago, Alberta wouldn't be a competition to BC, which speaks really about, rising up to the brand of British Columbia as a cohesive group, and also highlighting the things that I have just talked about it. And talent retention is important, affordable housing and strong post-graduation job opportunities to keep the BC talent. Of course, I know that this is nothing to do with the institutions, right? But these are pointers that you can speak to your government. This afternoon, I am meeting and sharing some of the data points with the government of British Columbia. I think it's important for everybody to be on the same page so that you can together promote and get ahead of the game when it comes to recruitment and diversification of market. Destination campaign, my colleague Jigisha and Robin mentioned that. I think that would be incredible if you could do a destination campaign that features BC in different regions in the world. And again, talking about the BC transfer credit system that I think is just great in relationship to the other provinces. So with that, I think that we're going to end up the presentation. Two things that I want to bring to your attention. Number one, our Emerging Futures 8 data set is a huge data set. This is not the complete data. We just extracted some of the data to really speak to you all about British Columbia, but I invite you to visit our website. You can download the entire deck of Emerging Futures 8. I receive a lot of questions from all of you. Thank you so much. We receive a very comprehensive list of questions that you have, that they touch into the ROI, that touches into the the lists, the employability list, the demand list for the students, that touches about immigration, that touches about how British Columbia can position itself, and also what is the student satisfaction in terms of mental health supports. All of that, we're going to be replying to you. I'm going to be sending the list of questions with all the answers. What I can tell you are very specific things that we have found in our survey. Number one, unfortunately, Canada right now is also number 4th in student services and student support, and it's all related to the mental health supports that institutions need to provide to students. So we are ranking a little bit lower, and I'm very surprised because our survey says that we're ranking lower than the US on student services and international student support. So that is something that you can actually find on our website, on our deck. The second thing that I think is really important, that is in relation to the policy. I want you to know that Canada right now in this survey is ranking number 2 after New Zealand in the most clear policy establishment that there is right now in between Canada, US, Australia. What does that mean? My assessment to the situation is that our policies have remained not ideal, but stable within the past year. So students are feeling that we have clear policies now. Why do they think that? Is because institutions, all of you have taken the time to talk to your agents, to talk to students, to talk to parents, to talk to counselors, to really clarify the positioning of your institution versus the policy. And the other thing that I wanted to touch place on it, the employability lists that you mentioned in the question. As well, it's very important for you to know that Canada has also a very clear stipulation of those lists. So it's going to be also in our EF8 deck that you can find on our website. You also have some questions about how you can create strategies with the IDP data and with the access of the demand that you have. Those questions, are very much related to my colleague Robin. You probably have data within your institutions that you can access. So I think that Robin, I don't know if you want to touch point on some of the potential aspects of the performance of each institution and how to move forward from there into creating some sort of a strategy and tactic for institutions in BC.
Thanks, Olivia. Yes, we do. So for anyone that is interested, IDP, we have a wealth of services and our data and insights really are feeding in the real-time information. So if you're looking at programs and evaluating sort of which ones to sort of promote, we've got sort of real life examples and we can tailor it specifically to your institution of sort of trends, long tail, short tails. I would say if there is interest, we can send some information to Kate and Morgan just about sort of the other services that IDP delivers. But happy to get on a call with you to sort of talk about the opportunities available if you are interested in getting some third-party validation of what's happening specifically for your institution.
Thank you, Robin. And I think with that, I am going to pass the microphone again back to Kate. And thank you, Kate, again for hosting us today.
Thank you so much, Olivia, Robin, and Jigisha for coming here to speak to our institutions and all the insights that you've shared with us. Really, really helpful. So to our audience here, we're going to send an email to everyone with this slide deck that IDP just presented. And also, as Olivia mentioned, IDP is going to provide some further information on the questions that you have submitted. So we're happy to share with all of that materials with you after this webinar. We do have a question just came into the Q&A box. I'm going to read it out and feel free to answer. So the question we have here is, where do Japanese students fit into this data or international students coming to BC and Canada?
Gigi, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. We are seeing strong ties in South Asia. So Japan didn't come as a country, but we are seeing Hong Kong, China, India. So there's a strong South, East, and Asia influence. But like I said, in the charts that I showed and we'll send the deck later on, we don't see Japan as the top 10 source countries at this point in time.
I could just add to that. So anyone that is a digital partner of IDP, so a core partner is what we refer to, you should have access to this Emerging Futures survey as a whole. And so you can isolate the survey responses from Japan. So thanks for your question, Greg. We can always get back to you as a follow-up email, just provide you with what insights we received from Japanese students. But yes, as Jigisha mentioned, it didn't come up in our top 10.
Okay, great. Thank you. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to put that in the Q&A box. But if not, we're also happy to forward any questions you might have to IDP, or if you want to get in touch with them directly, please feel free to do so. And I guess now we've come to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We do want to learn your feedback on what you think about this webinar, so please feel free to complete the survey while you log out on Zoom to let us know how your thoughts. We also want to mention that we do have a few upcoming webinars for the rest of this year. So the first one is going to happen next week. It's on mental health. And also we are going to have another Trade Commission update with Indonesia in early December. Please feel free to review those information on BCCIE website. If you're interested in coming, please be sure to register there. Again, I want to thank all of our speakers today for coming and sharing all the information with us. And thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We wish everyone a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.